Hey, what's up everybody? It's Flux with Fluxwithit.com, and today we're going to check out the Novation Circuit. This is a product that was sent to me for review, and I specifically requested to review it because I'm really interested in mobile music production, and I like devices that I can kind of just throw in a bag, take with me. I can sit up, you know, if I want to go up onto the couch and just kind of mess around for a little while I'm playing with the kids or whatever, you know, I can do that. So I hit up Novation and I talked to them about doing a review or at least just checking it out. And they were kind enough to send one over for me to check it out. So I've had it for about a month now, and I'm going to give you my thoughts and impressions on it. Let's take a look at the unit. The Novation Circuit, it's kind of laid out like a mini launch pad in a way. You've got these grids of buttons here, and then you've got synth controls, drum controls, and whatnot. These macro controls were my biggest concern. So as you can tell, they don't have, you know, any kind of scribble strip to tell you what they are. All they really have is an indication LED that gets brighter or dimmer as you turn it. And that kind of tells you your amount right there. The sequencing on this thing is really straightforward. It's basically a 16-step sequencer. No more, no less. You can chain your patterns together to make something a little bit more complex, but really what I think this thing is geared towards is, you know, scratch pad ideas, coming up with something and then exporting it and expanding upon it later. So when this thing first came out, you had these, you know, the drum 1, drum 2, drum 3, drum 4 was all just what they had in there, and it was a set thing. The cool thing about the circuit is it's been getting a lot of updates. So many updates that honestly, I went to do this video today and I plugged it in and it already had a firmware update, and I had just done a firmware update on it not that long ago. So they're constantly updating this thing, and one of the major updates for this was that you can add your own samples into this thing. So you get 60 seconds of sample memory in it, and you can allot it how you choose. Just toss in your drum samples. I've put in a bunch of drum samples from my Fluxwithit expansion packs, the 8-bit dipped, so I have my own drum sounds in here right now. In addition to that, you're not actually limited to just 4 drum sounds per pattern. You can actually do per step changes of what drum note you're on. So let me hit play just to give you an example. So if you listen to the track right now, there's multiple drum sounds going on and lots of variation. And what's happening here is I'm doing automation of the knobs, and in addition to that, I'm also switching between drum samples. So this is drum 1, and you can see how it's changing around. This is the snare drum, and I'm changing back and forth between different snare drums. So for each step, I can have a totally different sample that I've loaded into the circuit running, which is pretty cool. These synthesizers here, you have Synth 1 and Synth 2. Now these are both basically engines of the Ultranova. Again, we're going to get back to these knobs up top. You're going to ask yourself, well, how do I set ADSR? How do I set filter? You know, how do I detune my oscillators? This is all set per patch. Each patch that you load up on here, if I hit Shift and Synth 1, I can now select between my patches. One of the updates that was released today is that you can do live previewing of those patches. And you'll notice that as I'm pressing these different patch previews, different lights are lighting up at different amounts because each one of these are actually set to different things. So these are not always the same controls. Now, Novation also has a software with Sigaport Isotonic, and basically this will give you complete access to the synth engine inside of here. You don't have complete access to it right from the hardware. You have these macro controls. Well, you can map out the macro controls by going to this editing software, and you'll see macro 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inside of that, you can select different destinations. You have 4 destinations for each macro knob. So each one of these macro knobs can control 4 parameters at a single time. And you can have varying amounts of that parameter control. So you could, for instance, be controlling filter cutoff and resonance. You could be sweeping a filter down and bringing the resonance up at the same time from just one knob, while bringing up something like, say, oscillator detune, all at the same time. Trying to memorize what each knob does for every single patch is probably not going to happen, but that's part of the fun of this thing. This is a box that basically is inviting you just to start tweaking knobs and see what you like, and don't focus too much on the synthesis specifics. It's more grooving, having fun, and then, you know, whatever you get, go ahead and export it. So if you're familiar with the Ultranova has a really powerful synth engine, and you've got, you know, wavetables, beautiful filters in it, all sorts of good stuff. This is kind of like 2 stripped down Ultranovas inside of this box, which is pretty darn cool. Sounds really good in my opinion. In addition to the synth engine, you also have a master filter, which is kind of like a DJ filter. It's low pass and high pass. So as you sweep through, you can high pass up top and then low pass. Let's change the session here. We'll load something up. Now, as I'm playing this session here, you'll notice the notes that I'm playing. You can see the drums. And we can sweep that filter. Now the filter knob and really all the controls are very high resolution. You don't get a lot of stepping or anything in them. Everything feels really solid and smooth, which is nice. The thing is built like a tank. I have to say, I've let my 2.5-year-old son play with this thing, and I was not nervous at all. I do have to send this thing back, and I wasn't even nervous at all to have him playing with it because it's built that solidly. You have a nice little headphone port here. You've got your 1/4-inch jacks. You also have MIDI jacks. Now the MIDI jacks are those little mini jacks. So you get 2 of these along with it. You also get a USB cable, and you get a power connector. Now, the entire time that I've had this thing, I've used it only with battery power and haven't had any issues with battery consumption. The effects section is pretty straightforward on here. As we go through, we can kind of select different effects, and you can select amounts of those effects. The layout on this thing takes a little while to get used to, but it's really not that bad. I would say that the best way to approach this product is to think of it mostly as something that you want to just kind of keep with you for the times that you're not in your studio and you just want to jam out. Another nice thing that we'll see is when you go into modes like tempo and swing, it actually displays the number right on the pads here. So let's say I want to increase this swing. Let's go back to straight. So you're swinging forward and back. And let's say we want to adjust our tempo. Now this will send and receive MIDI. You can control it from another device. You can have it sending clock. You can link this thing completely up with the rest of your studio. Now again, we'll get into our sessions here. As you load up sessions, all your patches, everything goes right along with it. The samples will stay. So whatever you load in there as your samples, that's going to be what's in there. But again, you can get into some pretty interesting tweaking. Now, if I'm on my drums here, let's say I want to tweak something, you can record it in real time. setup on here is kind of similar to clip launching in Ableton Live. Now you'll see here I have selected patterns: 1 for synth 1, pattern 2 for synth 2, pattern 2 for my first drum section, and pattern 2 for my second drum section. Watch as I change through these. Let's bring that tempo up a bit. You can freely adjust your note length. You can nudge notes back and forth. You can adjust your gate, velocity. You've got a lot of controls on here, but really what I think that this thing most excels at is just being something that you don't overthink. Just take it, keep it as a mobile device, play with it. Then when you get home, you can just sample it back in, whatever you want to do, and have some fun with it. Again, it's built crazy. This thing is so solid. The knobs feel super smooth. That's what's probably impressed me the most about this thing, is how well it's built. Now let me take this stuff apart here, and we'll actually just flip it over. The other cool thing about this is battery powered, and it has a built-in speaker, which means quite literally you can take this thing in the car with you and just jam out with it. You don't have to have it connected to anything at all. I'll undo let's check this out. I don't know if you can catch this over my lapel mic, but it's actually pretty loud. So the speaker in this is actually a pretty decent speaker considering what this thing is. It's not super tiny like the Volcabeats speaker. This one you can actually kind of hear what it is that you're making on it while you're on the go, which you gotta love that. So again, software up on here lets you adjust the synth programs. They also have a program called the components. Now when you have components, you can actually decide what samples you're throwing onto the pads. You can load sessions, so you can store things. You can easily manipulate what is in the box. So if you want to have a different set of samples on there, you can load it from a preset that you've already stored and just be on your way. So the pattern editing on this is actually 16 steps. You can record in real time, but you are going to be locked to that grid. You have that swing, but beyond that, you're not going to get a higher resolution than just 16 steps. So, but I wouldn't put it past them to have some sort of update for that as well, because like I said, they've been supporting this thing so well and updating it time and time again. So definitely check out the Novation Circuit. Really cool. Peace.